Daniel adjusted the strap of his khaki bag as he stepped down from the rusty bus that brought him to a border village. The dust rose in tiny clouds, coating his polished jungle boots, but he didn't mind. He stood tall, scanning the small village square. His olive green NYSC trousers and white vest clung neatly to his athletic frame. A few bikemen were parked under a tree, their curious eyes following him as he looked around. "No Corper be this," one of them whispered to the other. "Yes now. No be NYSC uniform be that. He resembles City Boy SCF," another replied with a grin. Daniel smiled to himself. He had heard stories about how Corpers were treated like small kings in some villages. Free food, free rides, attention from the ladies, all the benefits of being the only Lagos boy around. It was going to be an interesting one-year service, he thought. As he walked towards the community hall where new Corpers were expected to report, villagers stole glances at him. Some of the women greeted him warmly, and a few young girls giggled and pointed as he passed. Daniel noticed them, of course. His confidence swelled. Inside the hall, the village head and a few community leaders were seated. The smell of old wood and palm oil soup lingered faintly in the air. "Good afternoon, sir," Daniel greeted with a small bow, handing over his posting letter. The village head, a man in his 60s with tribal marks and a calm voice, smiled. "You are welcome, Corper Daniel," he said. "We thank the government for sending you to serve here. You will stay in the Corpers Lodge, near the secondary school. They will take you there." Daniel nodded politely, grateful that things were moving smoothly. A young boy was sent to guide him to the lodge, a small building with 2 rooms, a sitting area, and a veranda. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean. There was a wooden bed, a small table, and a chair. Daniel dropped his bag and stretched. "This place no bad at all," he said to himself, smiling. By evening, the news had already spread through the village. A handsome Lagos Corper had arrived. That night, a group of girls passed by the lodge giggling loudly. Daniel, who was sitting outside scrolling on his phone, looked up. "Good evening, Corper," one of them called. "Good evening," Daniel replied with a grin. They giggled again and hurried off. Daniel shook his head, laughing softly. This village was going to be fun. The next morning, Daniel reported to the secondary school where he was posted. The principal, Mr. Samuel, was a tall man with a gentle demeanor. "Welcome, Corper Daniel," he said, shaking his hand firmly. "We are happy to have you. You will be teaching English language and civic education." Daniel nodded. "Yes, sir." The principal introduced him to the students. The moment he entered the class, the students gasped and whispered among themselves. The girls, especially, could not hide their excitement. "Good morning, students," Daniel greeted. "Good morning, sir," they chorused, some almost shouting. As he wrote his name on the chalkboard, Daniel noticed one girl in the front row, quiet, serious-looking, her notebook already open. She had a simple hairstyle and wore a well-ironed uniform. She didn't giggle or whisper like the others. Instead, she focused intently on what he was saying. After class, some students gathered around Daniel to ask random questions, some serious, some just to stay close to him. The quiet girl stayed back at her desk, arranging her books. "What's your name?" Daniel asked her. "Grace," she replied softly, standing up politely. Daniel nodded. "Good. Keep it up, Grace. I like students who are serious." She smiled briefly and left the class. That evening, a few villagers visited Daniel to welcome him. They brought gifts, roasted yam, palm oil, fresh vegetables. One of them, a young lady named Mary, stayed longer than the others, chatting and laughing. She was lively, pretty, and bold. "Corper, if you need anything, just call me," she said with a wink before leaving. Daniel chuckled. "This place no go boring at all," he muttered as he shut the door. As he lay on the bed that night, Daniel thought about the day. The attention, the smiles, the friendly villagers, everything felt good. He promised himself he would enjoy his time in Oboda. After all, NYSC was just 1 year. What he didn't know was that this village would change his life forever, and not in the way he expected. By the end of his first week in Obodo village, Daniel was already the talk of the entire community. Everywhere he went, people greeted him warmly, "Corper Daniel. Our Lagos boy. Welcome." He had quickly adjusted to village life, waking up early to sweep the front of the lodge, walking to school, teaching with enthusiasm, and then relaxing in the evenings. But the thing that surprised him the most was how much attention he got, especially from the young women. Mary, the lively girl who had first visited him, became a regular face at the lodge. "Corper, you cannot be cooking by yourself," she said one afternoon, balancing a bowl of hot ifo on her head. "You will spoil your hand. Let me be bringing food for you." Daniel laughed. "Oh, Mary, you will spoil me, oh. But thank you." Mary smiled shyly, clearly pleased with herself. Soon, she was not the only one. Another girl, Anita, began washing his clothes without even asking. Daniel came back from school one day to see his khaki trousers washed, ironed, and folded neatly on his bed. "Who did this?" he asked, looking around. "It's me," Anita said, appearing from the veranda with a wide smile. "I know you are tired after teaching, so I help you." Daniel shook his head and laughed. "You girls are too much." The boys in the village noticed all this and started teasing Daniel. "City boy, you don't catch our village girls finish," one of them joked as Daniel passed by. Daniel smiled. "No be me, oh, not them, they come meet me." He said it playfully, but deep inside, he enjoyed the attention. Even the women in the market began to notice. "That Corper fine, oh," one of them said to another as Daniel passed through the market to buy plantain. "See as him walk, like film actor." Daniel overheard and smiled, pretending not to. In school, Daniel became a star. The students loved his teaching style. The boys wanted to be like him. The girls began competing for his attention. Some started bringing him snacks during break, groundnuts, puff-puff, even cooked rice wrapped in leaves. But Grace remained different. She greeted him politely but never lingered. When other students rushed to talk to him after class, she packed her books quietly and left. One day, during break, Daniel decided to approach her. "Grace," he called, and she turned, looking a bit surprised. "Yes, sir. You are always serious. Don't you ever play with your friends?" Grace smiled slightly. "I play sometimes, but I like to read during break. My exams are coming." Daniel nodded. "That's good. You must be a very brilliant girl." Grace shrugged. "I just like to focus. My parents said I must make them proud." Daniel admired her discipline. But a part of him wondered why she didn't act like the others. She didn't giggle, didn't try to impress him, didn't seem interested in him at all. That evening, Mary came to the lodge again, this time with Anita and two other girls. "Corper, come outside," Mary called. Daniel came out, holding his phone. "What is it?" "We came to gist with you," Anita said. "We don't want you to be lonely." Daniel laughed and sat with them. They talked about Lagos, about school, about life in the city. The girls listened with wide eyes as Daniel told them about malls, beaches, and traffic in Lagos. "So you mean there are buildings taller than trees everywhere?" Mary asked, amazed. "Yes," Daniel replied proudly. "And at night, everywhere is full of light. You people will love it if you come to Lagos." By the time the girls left, Daniel felt like a celebrity. But not everyone was pleased. The next day in school, Grace cornered Mary during break. "Mary, why are you always going to the Corper's lodge?" Grace asked. Mary rolled her eyes. "Oh, is it your lodge?" "We are just helping him. He is new here." Grace shook her head. "You know it's not just help. You people are distracting him, and yourselves. This is not good." Mary hissed. "Grace, you two do holy. Leave us alone." Grace sighed and returned to her desk. She had tried. Later that week, Daniel began noticing the girls were getting bolder. One evening, Mary stayed late after everyone had gone. She helped Daniel tidy his room, sweeping and arranging his books. "You are too kind," Daniel said as she finished. Mary smiled and sat on the edge of his bed. "I just like helping you, Corper. You are not like the boys here." Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest. Mary was pretty, no doubt. And she looked at him with so much admiration. "Thank you," he said softly. Mary smiled again, not moving. Daniel didn't ask her to leave immediately. Something about the attention felt too good to resist. That night, Daniel found himself thinking about Mary before he slept. He had promised himself to stay focused, but the constant attention was slowly breaking his resolve. Grace, on the other hand, stayed focused. Every evening, she sat under the mango tree near her house, reading by the dim lantern light. While her friends giggled and made plans to visit Daniel, she prayed quietly for strength to keep herself pure. In the spiritual realm, two paths were forming, one that would lead to destruction, and one that would lead to life. Daniel didn't know it yet, but he was standing right at the crossroads. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon. The sun was high, and most villagers were indoors resting. Daniel was sitting outside the lodge, scrolling through his phone and listening to music when he saw Mary approaching, balancing a covered plate on her head. "Corper," she called, smiling brightly. Daniel removed his earphones. "Mary. What did you bring this time?" Mary laughed as she entered the compound. "Fried rice and chicken. I knew you would be hungry." Daniel's eyes lit up. "You are too much." She set the plate on the table and sat down. Daniel opened the plate, the smell of fried rice hit him immediately. "Oh. This one not correct fried rice. You sure say you no go marry me?" Daniel teased. Mary giggled. "You never ask me." They both laughed. After eating, Daniel leaned back in his chair, satisfied. "Mary, you are a good cook. I go miss you when I finish my service." Mary smiled shyly and looked away. "You don't have to miss me. You can always come back." Daniel chuckled. Maybe I will." There was a short silence. The air was thick with unspoken thoughts. "Corper," Mary said softly, "why do you like staying alone? Don't you get lonely?" Daniel looked at her. She was sitting close, her hands folded on her lap. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I am used to it." Mary nodded, then hesitated. "I can keep you company, if you want." Daniel's heart skipped. He looked at her again. Her face was innocent but her eyes held a different message. "Mary," he said slowly, "you know you should focus on your future. Don't let me distract you." Mary smiled, leaning closer. "You are not distracting me. I like being here." Daniel tried to resist, but her nearness, her kindness, and her constant attention had worn down his guard. He reached out and held her hand. She didn't pull away. That afternoon, Daniel made a choice that changed everything. He slept with her. Afterward, Mary stayed longer at the lodge, tidying up and humming to herself. "You will not tell anybody about this, right?" Daniel asked, suddenly worried. Mary laughed softly. "Who will I tell? You are my Corper. You are special to me." Daniel relaxed and smiled. "You better not get me into trouble." Mary winked. "Don't worry. I can keep secrets." But secrets don't stay hidden for long. Within days, Anita noticed that Mary was spending more time at the lodge and started asking questions. "Mary, what is going on between you and Corper Daniel?" Anita asked one evening as they fetched water. Mary tried to hide her smile. "Nothing. Nothing." Anita raised her brow. "You think I don't know?" Better share him all, because you are not the only one that likes him." Mary laughed. "If you can catch him, catch him. I won't fight you." Anita smirked. The challenge was on. Daniel, meanwhile, was battling with his conscience. Each time he stood in front of the students to teach, he felt Grace's calm eyes on him, and guilt gnawed at him. One afternoon, after class, he called her aside. "Grace, you are a very serious student," he said. "Don't let anyone distract you, including me." Grace looked puzzled. "Yes, sir. I know why I am here." Daniel nodded. "Good. I wish more people were like you." Grace smiled politely and left. Daniel sighed. If only he had her self-control. But his battle didn't last long. Anita came to the lodge the next evening with roasted plantain and groundnut. "Corper, you will not say no to Bolly," she teased. Daniel laughed. "You girls want to feed me until I become fat." As they ate together, Anita told him stories of her childhood, of her dreams to leave the village one day and work in the city. "You can take me to Lagos one day, ABI?" she asked with a mischievous smile. Daniel smiled back. "Maybe." And just like that, he crossed the line again, this time with Anita. Soon, the visits became more frequent. One girl after another began finding excuses to come to the lodge. They brought food, washed his clothes, swept his room, and one by one, they became part of Daniel's secret life. The boys in the village started gossiping. "Corper Daniel no bad guy, oh," one of them said under the mango tree. "He don't catch Mary, he don't catch Anita." "Who remain?" "Not true," another agreed. "But who go blame am? The girls know they let am rest." Grace noticed the changes too. Some of her classmates began skipping evening lessons to visit Daniel. Their laughter could be heard from the lodge at night. One day after school, Grace decided to speak to Daniel directly. "Sir," she said quietly as the last student left the classroom, "may I talk to you?" Daniel looked surprised. "Of course. What is it?" Grace hesitated, then said, "Sir, you are a role model. The younger girls look up to you. Please be careful. People are talking." Daniel's face hardened. "Who is talking?" "Everyone," Grace said gently. "This is a small village. People notice things." Daniel looked away, feeling a sting of guilt. "Thank you, Grace," he said shortly. "You can go." Grace nodded and left, praying silently for him. But Daniel didn't stop. Each night, the temptation grew stronger, and his resolve weaker. By the end of that month, he was involved with nearly half the young women in the village. To Daniel, it felt like fun, but to the village, it was a scandal waiting to explode. The harmattan breeze blew gently that Monday morning as Daniel walked to school, his jungle boots crunching on the sandy road. A group of boys sitting under the big mango tree whistled and called out to him. "City boy," one of them shouted, laughing. "We hear say you dey enjoy for Lojo." Daniel grinned but said nothing. He had learned that in a small village, silence was sometimes safer than words. Still, he couldn't deny that he felt like a king. Everywhere he went, the girls smiled at him. Some even brought him gifts without being asked. He liked the feeling, the admiration, the attention, the way people seemed eager to please him. But slowly, the admiration turned into competition. One Saturday evening, as Daniel was relaxing outside the lodge, Mary arrived with a plate of jollof rice. A few minutes later, Anita showed up with roasted fish. The air grew tense immediately. "Mary, you are here again?" Anita asked, frowning. "Yes," Mary said sharply. "Why? Is this your lodge?" Daniel tried to calm them down. "Ladies, there's enough food for everyone. Sit down." But they ignored him. "Mary, stop following Corper everywhere," Anita snapped. "And you? You think you are better than me because you know how to roast fish?" Mary shot back. The argument grew louder until Daniel had to step in. "Enough," he said. "Both of you should go home. I don't want trouble." They left reluctantly, but the tension didn't end there. By the next day, everyone in the village knew Mary and Anita had fought over Corper Daniel. The gossip spread like wildfire. At the market, women whispered. "These girls don't fear God," one of them said, shaking her head. How can they be fighting over a man? Even the Corper should be careful, another woman added. If he is not careful, trouble will find him. But the gossip didn't scare Daniel. If anything, it seemed to make him more attractive to the other girls. Soon, a new face started visiting the lodge, Rebecca, a tall, quiet girl who had always stayed in the background. She brought Daniel fruits from her father's farm and shyly asked him to teach her English after school. At first, Daniel agreed to help her as a teacher would. But one evening, as they sat close together reading, Rebecca reached out and touched his arm. "Corper," she said softly, "I like you." Daniel hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "Rebecca, this is not right. I am your teacher." But Rebecca only smiled. "Nobody has to know." And just like that, Daniel fell again. Grace saw the changes and became more troubled. She saw how Mary, Anita, and now Rebecca spent less time in school and more time loitering near the lodge. She noticed how some of her classmates had started missing evening prep because they were helping Corper. One day after school, Grace gathered a few of the girls and tried to talk to them. "My friends, what you are doing is not wise," Grace said gently. "You are wasting your time. You should focus on your studies." Mary rolled her eyes. "Grace, you are always preaching. Leave us alone." Corper is not complaining. "Yes," Anita added. "You think you are better than us because you are still a virgin." Grace's heart sank. "It is not about me," she said quietly. "It is about your future. Don't let one man destroy it." But they laughed and walked away. That evening, Grace prayed under the mango tree as the sky turned orange with sunset. "Lord, please help me to stay focused. And please open Daniel's eyes before it is too late," she whispered. But in the lodge that same evening, Daniel was entertaining 3 girls at once. They laughed loudly, talking about Lagos and dancing to music from his phone. "Corper, you must take me to ShopRite one day," Rebecca said, twirling. "ShopRite KO, ShopRite NI," Mary said playfully, laughing. Daniel laughed with them, but deep down, something felt off. Each time he looked at Grace in school, he felt a stab of guilt. But each night, the loneliness returned, and the girls were always willing to feel it. By the end of that term, Daniel had become the unofficial star of the village. At school, the principal began to notice that some girls were suddenly performing poorly. He called Daniel one morning. "Corper Daniel," the principal said, frowning, "I don't know what is happening, but some of the girls you teach are no longer serious. Are you aware?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Sir, I have noticed it too. I will talk to them." "You better do," the principal said sternly. "I don't want any trouble. If something happens, it is your name that will come up." Daniel nodded, trying to look innocent. But when he left the office, he only sighed. He had already gone too far. By now, the entire village was buzzing with talk. "Corper Daniel is charming," some girls said with pride. "Corper Daniel is dangerous," some parents warned their daughters. But no one could deny that he had become the most popular man in Oboda. What Daniel didn't know was that the seeds he was planting would soon bear fruit, bitter fruit that he would not be able to escape. The next week, Grace stayed behind after school. She had been watching Daniel for months, praying for him quietly, but now she felt the need to speak to him directly. She waited until the other students had left, then slowly walked toward the lodge. Her heart pounded, but she whispered, "Lord, give me courage." When she got to the lodge, Daniel was sitting outside, polishing his jungle boots. He looked up, surprised. "Grace. What are you doing here? You should be home by now." Grace took a deep breath. "Sir, I need to talk to you." Daniel gestured for her to sit. "Go ahead. Is everything okay?" Grace sat on the low wooden bench, folding her hands on her lap. For a moment, she was silent, gathering her thoughts. "Sir, I respect you as our teacher," she began quietly. "But what you are doing with the girls in this village is not right." Daniel froze, his boot brushed in midair. "What are you talking about?" "You know what I am talking about," Grace said, her voice firm now. Mary, Anita, Rebecca, even others. They no longer come to school because they are always here. People are talking in the village. And some of them, she swallowed, are already saying they have missed their monthly flow. Daniel's heart skipped. Grace, stop. You don't understand. I understand enough, Grace said, standing up now. Sir, you came here to teach us, to help us, to guide us. But instead, you are leading some of the girls astray. They are young. They don't know better. But you, she pointed at him, you should know better. Daniel stood up too, his face suddenly serious. Grace, you think it is easy. You think I planned this. I am far from home. I am lonely. These girls are not your wives. Grace said sharply. Loneliness is not an excuse to ruin someone's future. Her voice broke, but she pressed on. Sir, you taught us about career development on the first day you came. You told us education is the key to success. Do you want to be the reason some of us drop out of school? Daniel stared at her, speechless. He had never heard Grace speak this boldly before. You think I don't feel tempted, she continued, tears in her eyes. You think I don't notice the way you look at me sometimes. But I have chosen to fear God. I have chosen to wait. Because I know my life is bigger than a few minutes of pleasure. Daniel looked away, ashamed. Grace's words cut through him like a blade. Please, sir, she said finally, her voice softer now. Change. Before it is too late. You can still make things right. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving Daniel standing in silence, the boot brush still in his hand. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Grace's words kept echoing in his mind. Loneliness is not an excuse to ruin someone's future. He tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling. Was Grace right? He thought of Mary, who had stopped coming to school completely. Anita, who had once been top of her class, now struggling to pass. Rebecca, who was always at his lodge. Had he destroyed their future? Daniel sat up, running his hands over his face. He felt guilty, but also angry with himself. I just wanted to feel alive, he muttered. I just wanted company. But deep down, he knew Grace was right. The next morning at school, Daniel's eyes followed Grace as she walked into class. She was focused, her books neatly arranged, her uniform spotless. She sat in the front row as usual, taking notes carefully. Something about her calmness made Daniel respect her even more. After class, he called her. Grace, he said quietly. Thank you for what you said yesterday. I know you were right. Grace nodded but didn't smile. It is not me you should thank. Make peace with God, sir. Daniel sighed. I will try. But even as he said it, temptation still loomed. Because that evening, Rebecca came again. Corper, don't look so sad, she said, touching his shoulder. I brought you roasted yam. Daniel hesitated, Grace's words still ringing in his ears. Should he send Rebecca away? Or would he fall again? Grace, meanwhile, had made up her mind. She would not allow her future to be destroyed. She began spending more time with her books, preparing for exams. When her friends tried to mock her, she smiled and kept quiet. You will soon join us, Mary teased one afternoon. Corper will call you one day and you will run there. Grace only shook her head. Not me. My destiny is too important. By the end of that term, Grace was top of the class once again. The principal praised her in assembly. You see Grace, he said proudly. She is an example to all of you. Hard work pays. Grace smiled, her heart full. She knew she had made the right choice. But trouble was brewing. Because soon, the first pregnancy would be discovered. And Daniel's world would never be the same again. The term had barely ended when whispers began to spread through a border village. At first, it was just quiet talk in the market. Have you seen Mary recently? One woman asked another as they sold tomatoes. She is always covering herself with wrapper now, the other replied, lowering her voice. I hear she has missed her monthly flow. 3 months now. And who is responsible? The first woman shrugged. Who else? The Corper no. By the following week, it was no longer just market talk. The village square buzzed with gossip. Boys teased one another, calling each other Corper and laughing. Even at the school, students were whispering. Daniel heard it too. He was sitting in the staff room one morning when the headmaster cleared his throat. Corper Daniel, he said, looking uncomfortable. There is something I need to discuss with you. Daniel's heart began to beat faster. Yes, sir. The headmaster sighed. It is about Mary. Her parents came to see me. They say she is pregnant. And they are saying you are the one responsible. Daniel froze. No, sir, that's not true, he said quickly. Are you sure? The headmaster asked, looking him straight in the eye. Because the whole village is talking. This is not good for the school's reputation. Daniel swallowed hard. Sir, I will speak to her. That evening, Daniel waited at the lodge for Mary. She came quietly, looking nervous. Mary, what is all this I am hearing? Daniel asked. Mary looked down at her feet. Corper, I am pregnant. Daniel felt like the ground shifted beneath him. No, are you sure? Mary nodded. I have missed 3 months. My mother took me to the nurse. She said I am 2 months gone. Daniel sat down, running his hands over his face. Mary, how could you be so careless? Did you tell anyone it was me? Mary frowned. Who else would I say it is? You are the only one I have been with. Daniel groaned. This is bad. Very bad. By the next morning, everyone knew. The news spread like wildfire. Children sang mocking songs as Daniel passed by. Women shook their heads when they saw him. Fine boy Corper, see what you have done, one of them muttered loud enough for him to hear. Daniel avoided the market completely that day. When he reached the school, some students giggled as he entered the classroom. Grace, sitting at the front, didn't laugh. She only looked at him with a mixture of sadness and pity. After class, she stayed behind again. Sir, she said quietly, I warned you. But now, see what has happened. Daniel nodded silently, too ashamed to reply. Mary's father, a tall, stern man, soon arrived at the lodge with his brothers. Daniel, he shouted, banging on the door. Daniel stepped out, his heart racing. Sir, please calm down. Calm down. You have spoiled my daughter's life. She was supposed to write her exams next term. Now what will happen? Daniel tried to speak, but the man wasn't listening. You must take responsibility, he said, pointing a finger at him. If you think you will just go back to Lagos and forget her, you are joking. Daniel promised to take care of her, but the damage was already done. For weeks, the scandal hung over him like a dark cloud. The other girls who had been flocking around him began to fear, but it was too late for some of them. Anita, too, stopped coming to school and soon confessed she was also pregnant. The entire village was in shock. One old woman asked. 2 girls. From one Corper. Before long, the number grew to 4. Daniel could barely walk in the village without feeling eyes on him. Children whispered. Mothers warned their daughters. Stay away from that Corper, they said. He is a destroyer. Grace, meanwhile, kept shining. She stayed consistent with her studies and her faith. While others laughed at her at first, they began to respect her. Grace, you were right all along, one of the girls told her one evening. See what has happened to us. Grace held her hand gently. You can still turn back to God. He can forgive you. But deep inside, Grace felt sad. Sad for her friends, sad for Daniel, sad for what could have been. Daniel, now isolated, spent most evenings sitting outside the lodge, staring into space. How did I get here? He muttered. I came here to serve, and now I have brought shame to myself. He thought of Grace and her words again. Maybe it wasn't too late to change. But first, he would have to face the full consequences of his actions, and they were just beginning. The news of the multiple pregnancies shook Oboda village like thunder. Whispers turned into shouts, and shouts turned into full-blown accusations. By the second week, the principal could no longer contain the scandal. He sent a formal letter to the local government inspector. Soon, the NYSC zonal office heard about it, and then the police. All villagers, gather in the square this evening. By sunset, the entire community was present. Mothers, fathers, chiefs, youths, even children came running. Daniel was ordered to sit in front of everyone. His khaki trousers were dusty, his white vest soaked with sweat. Boba Ode, the oldest elder, stood up. Daniel, Lagos Corper, he began, his voice heavy with disappointment. You came here to serve your fatherland. We welcomed you. We trusted you. But look at what you have done. The crowd erupted in angry murmurs. You have turned this village upside down, another elder shouted. Mary, Anita, Rebecca, Ngozi, all with child. You have destroyed our daughter's future. Daniel bowed his head, trembling. Just as Daniel opened his mouth to speak, a police Hilux drove into the square, siren blaring. Where is the corper? The police sergeant barked, stepping out. That is him, one of the fathers pointed angrily. Before Daniel could react, two policemen grabbed him by the arm. Officer, please, Daniel tried to explain. Shut up. You are under arrest for unlawful carnal knowledge of your student and endangering the education of girls in this community, the sergeant said, handcuffing him. The villagers gasped. Some cheered. Others shook their heads sadly. Daniel was marched into the van like a common criminal. Children ran after the van, chanting, Corper Bellgiver. Corper Bellgiver. Daniel sat in the back of the van, tears streaming down his face. At the police station, Daniel spent the night in a cold cell. The next morning, NYSC officials arrived from the state capital. Daniel Chokuma, the inspector, called. Yes, sir, Daniel said weakly. You are hereby withdrawn from service for gross misconduct and breach of the NYSC Code of Conduct. You have brought disrepute to the scheme. Daniel felt like he had been punched in the chest. NYSC was the pride of every graduate, and now, he was being sent home in disgrace. You will pack your belongings from the lodge under supervision, the inspector continued. You will return your NYSC ID card and uniform immediately. You are no longer a corps member. When Daniel was brought back to the lodge to pack, the entire village gathered to watch. See someone shouted. City boy waiting say him fine pass everybody. Mary stood in the crowd, tears on her cheeks. Anita turned her face away. Grace was there too, standing quietly, her heart heavy. Daniel packed his few belongings into a small bag, his hands shaking. His khaki cap fell to the ground, he left it there. When he was done, the inspector ordered him into the waiting vehicle. Let's go. As the van drove away, Daniel caught one last glimpse of the school where he had once been celebrated. Now, he was living in shame. When Daniel reached Lagos, he couldn't face anyone. His parents were devastated. Daniel, his father said quietly, you have brought disgrace to this family. Your name is now on the police record. Your NYSC service is terminated. What will you tell future employers? Daniel collapsed on the floor and wept like a child. Mama, Papa, I am sorry, he cried. I destroyed my future with my own hands. For Daniel, this was rock bottom. Everything he had, respect, honor, his NYSC status, even his dreams, had been stripped away. Meanwhile, in the village, the other girls live in lifelong regret, while Rose furthered her education and becomes a celebrated corps member and a beacon of hope, traveling to educate girls on purity and the dangers of premarital sex. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story and was blessed from watching. Don't forget to like, share and drop your comments in the comment section.